What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is the Librarians and the Image of Image. And I gotta say, I really like what they're doing with Librarians this season. They're doing a great job of character building. They're doing a good job of bringing us interesting stories week after week. But I'll get to the story this week in a second. But I just the fact that they are digging into these characters a bit. Last week we learned a bit about the Guardian and the Librarians and kind of their relationship and how the Librarians are kind of expendable. Jenkins tells Eve, the Librarians die. That's they die a lot. The Guardians are the ones that are supposed to save, not them, not save their bodies, save their souls. Protect their souls. And once again, this episode they kind of touch on that a bit more, and even Jones, of all three of the Librarians, Jones is the least likely one to have kind of an what's it called, like a I I can't even think of the word, like the light bulb moment. Why can't I think of the? I don't know. My mind's a little rattled right now. But he has one of those aha moments where he kind of realizes, Cassandra, and she's like, "We got the brain. I'm dying." Stone doesn't really have any family connections or anything like that. His family kind of disowned him. I have no connections to the real world or to anybody in it. I prefer anonymity. And he has that moment where he realizes what we found out last week, that the Librarians are expendable. And this moment where they all leave, and Jenkins comes in and says, "Well, it looks like they're figuring out, their true purpose and why the library selected them. You should probably do the same for yourself." Talking to Eve, and I feel like that's going to come into play. Why did she get selected by the library? You know, why did she get picked specifically? What is her purpose? So very interesting. I like the turn it's taking. I like the fact that the character building builds into the plot a bit. And I mean, not only that, but it's going beyond just being this quirky, kind of cheesy show. The first season, it had moments of brilliance. It had these moments where, like, oh, okay, like this is a pretty good show. But overall, it just maintained that quirkiness that, it was kind of charming to watch. This season, it's going beyond that. It's not just this quirky, cheesy show. They have the moments that, Cassandra, this whole episode, being drunk, is really funny to watch. But it's also kind of cheesy. There are moments where, Stone's talking to the bouncer in front of this club that they're at, and they're talking about the poets, and he's talking about the difference between American and English poets, and they're comparing poets, and the guy's like bringing up a poet that he thinks is English, and Stone's like, nope, he's Irish. And so, moments like that. Ezekiel somehow has hacked into the security like mainframe so that his retina on the eye scanners is like a backdoor into any eye scanner. So it's just like, what? Is that even possible? So, they do have the moments that it's just kind of, okay, that's just for the purpose of the show. That's just a little cheesy. But, it's a charming kind of cheesy. It's not the cheesy that makes you want to shake your head, facepalm, and go, why is that even a thing? But anyway, so, you still have elements of that, but they're really digging a bit deeper into the characters themselves. They're having a few more serious moments. They're really kind of building up to the main point of the plot. And even the cases themselves are getting a bit better. Last week, I talked about how the end was a bit rushed, but other than that, it was a good episode because it dealt a bit more with feelings. It talked about her friend, Eve's friend, and what he was going through, and then making the deal with the devil and all of this stuff. And then, the librarians sacrificing themselves, one of them about to take a hit to save the rest of the team. I mean, it got pretty serious near the end until it rushed it, and it was just like, oh, happy ending right there. So yeah, they are getting a bit more serious, even with the cases themselves. It's not just, oh, something magic happens and la di da, there they are. Now that being said, there are a few questions that were raised. Uh, they didn't. It was just like a very coincidental happening that Stone and Cassandra just happened to be in London right outside this club at the exact same time that they see this, they see this girl get hit by a mysterious object, um, which of course we see the guy getting hit by the car, and then the girl go flying. I'm like, how did that happen? Like, that was a pretty good mystery, but it was kind of coincidental that they just happened to see that, because the library didn't even give them anything this time. They saw it first. So I thought, that was a little coincidental, but obviously this had to happen somehow. Um, but yeah, very very good start. Kind of seeing this, you know that he's the bad guy, but they don't, and I like that they're, it's not like they're instantly assuming that it's somebody's fault, because we saw that it happened, and sometimes if you watch Criminal Minds, sometimes in those cases, like we see who the bad guys are, and they don't, and yet sometimes it feels like they are a little bit too on point. Like, it's just like, how did you just happen to come to that realization? And then there are some episodes where they're heading in one direction and we know it's not right, and then they find a clue that leads them back to the right way. But this is a very good episode in that they're thinking it's something to do with the building, and then she sees the guy taking the pictures, and they see the victims up in the picture screen, and they're like, oh well, it must be the photographer, it must be the camera. And all the time you notice this guy that you see like lurking around the club, and then come to find out later, he tells Cassandra's name, Dorian Gray, and I haven't read the Portrait of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, but I had heard of it, and so when I heard the name, I'm like, is this another fictional? And so I looked it up, in the commercial break. I looked up the information about it and found out about the portrait and how his sins transferred into the portrait. And I'm like, that must be going on with the pictures on the screen. Oh! And they come back from the commercial break, and Stone's looking through the book, sees the name of the artist who painted the portrait in Oscar Wilde's book was the one who owns the club. And so Jenkins, who's been around, who's been to that club before, tells them the story of Dorian Gray, that he actually did exist. He's not a fictional. I was like, okay, so that's interesting. I assumed it was going to be another fictional, and even they were like, so is this who it is? And he said no. Oscar Wilde was best friends with Dorian Gray. He wrote the book as kind of a warning against magic stuff like that. I was like, that's a clever take on it, turning history on its head like that. And they have done it a couple times before, but this was a very clever way to do it, in my opinion. And so then when they go and find the picture and destroy it, I'm like, well, that's too simple. That's just too easy. There's no way that's how it ends. And sure enough, he still has the power. And you finally realize after they find his portrait, first of all, it's on the internet, and so you can't just destroy it. And I'm sorry if that. I didn't even realize this until I've watched a couple of my videos. Like, sometimes the CD case in my laptop starts, CD starts spinning, and because this is shot off my laptop, it's really loud. So I apologize if that ever gets like too loud. Anyway, but they find out that his picture now is on a computer, so it's in the internet, it's in the cloud. You can't just destroy, you can't just destroy the monitor and it'd be gone. But not only that, it's made up of pictures of the people going to the club, and that's why all of the residual effects are transferred to them, because in the same way that all of his sins were transferred to his portrait in the book, now all of his sins are being transferred to these people. And I was kind of wondering, are they going to explain why? Are they just going to say, well, whatever, it's just something that he does? But they do explain it. I like that. I like the fact that they really did give us a reason. He hates humans. He hates mortal people because they get to feel stuff. Like, everything he does, there's one scene he cuts his hand and Cassandra, her hand gets cut. And he just talks about how he would kill anybody just to feel what they felt for 5 seconds. And it's just kind of this moment where all of his aspirations become clear. It's just, that's good villain building. You know, it's not just a villain who's evil because oh he was evil back then in this book, but he's doing this stuff now because he just doesn't care. And that's kind of what they were leaning towards. At least that's what Eve was thinking. She's like, oh well, do you just not care about anybody? But he finally does say, you know, I can't feel anything, and I hate you for being able to feel stuff. That's very interesting. But so all of this stuff is very good, very well done. Eve's plan is very well done too because she can take a lot of punishment where Cassandra can't. So she takes a picture of herself and has Jones put her picture in place of Cassandra's. So now she's the one feeling the effects. And so when Stone confronts him outside the club, you know, she tells him, you know, stop him, and he hits him a couple times. She feels it, but she can take it. But at the same time, I'm like, this is kind of pointless. Like, he doesn't feel it, so this isn't really stopping him. This is just like, you know, oh, I just got hit twice. I don't care. I'm move, type of thing. But then even the way that they solve the problem is very clever because Jones, instead of making a picture of him, made up of pictures of him because it wouldn't, you know, it would just be the same as the original portrait. He makes a picture of Eve made up of the pictures of Dorian Gray. And so she jumps off the building that he was threatening to jump off of, and you know that ends up killing him. And I'm just like, that's clever. You know, that is a clever way to end it. And instead of just, you know, oh yeah, we'll just make a picture of you, push you off the building. Oh wait, that's the same thing that happened before. No, it's something different. It's a clever way to twist the ending and really end it well and end it. Obviously, making sense is not the best words to use for this because magic is involved and it's fictional world. So technically, to say it makes sense is kind of it doesn't really make sense. But yeah, in the world that they live in, it's a good way to end it. It's a good way for it to make sense. So just the whole episode in and of itself is just a really well done episode, and it's probably one of my favorite Librarians episodes so far. But this season has really done well so far. I mean, they've really done well to set up towards the end, like I said at the beginning of this video. So I'm really excited to see where they're going with it. I'm excited to see where these characters go. I do feel like somebody important may die at the end of the season, though, because a lot of this season seems to be talking about the Librarians and how they are expendable and all this stuff, so I'm kind of thinking maybe Flynn, just because if we do lose Flynn, yeah, he's the one that ties it back to the movies. But I don't know, I feel like if you kill any of the three right now, one, they'll find a way to bring him back to life, because I don't think you can lose any of, you know, these three or Eve or Jenkins. I feel like those five are the ones that really hold the show together. Flynn is just kind of on the outskirts, but it will be something to work through maybe next season for Eve if she has to deal with the loss of Flynn, who has been, you know, companion, friend, lover for time. I think that would be an interesting turn for her to take it, for her to have to deal with the loss of somebody she cares about. So, you know, that's my opinions on what's going on. What do you think? You know, let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you at the next review. Peace out.